The Chargers proved on Sunday that they are clearly better than the Broncos in one very specific area that helped them lead to a second walk-off loss in consecutive weeks for Denver. Does Sean Payton need to make any adjustments to his offensive game plan? And what's really the root cause of Bo Nix's early season struggles that seem to be plaguing him again in 2025 the way they did in 2024? All things to come on today's rundown, but we begin with a special shout out to our friends at Denver Regenerative Medicine. Guys, if weight loss has been a struggle for you, it's time for something real. At Denver Regenerative Medicine, they use full-strength GLP-1 medications with doctor oversight. Start today with a free consultation and get real results for under $300 a month. Book now at denverregen.com. And with that, we welcome in our regular Monday guest, NFL insider to the stars, James Palmer, one of the busiest men in media, not just in Denver, but across the country. And James, I think it's safe to say that this Broncos game certainly went differently than it could have, given the way the game played out. But I had a bad feeling about this one. And on Friday, when I laid out some keys to the game, I felt like they were pretty simple and straightforward. One, the Broncos had to win the turnover battle. They were -3 in the turnover margin, and that's just not a recipe for success, especially with the way this offense has kind of sputtered out of the gate. Well, they did that. They had to get after the quarterback. If you allow Justin Herbert, who's proving once again, like he has for the majority of his career, why he's an upper echelon level talent at the quarterback position, they can't get close and not get home the way they did against Daniel Jones in Indianapolis. They sacked him 5 times, did the Broncos defense on Justin Herbert. And the third one was they had to cut down the penalty yardage. And that's the one they didn't do, as they were penalized 10 times for 90 yards compared to 3 times for 25 yards for the Chargers. And James, there's a lot of ways that you can point the blame finger as to why this game ultimately led to another walk-off loss for the Broncos, but the penalty yardage really stands out to me, especially with the critical nature and situation that some of them unfolded. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers got 6 first downs from penalties?
Correct.
I think the Talanoa Hufanga suplex was a turning point in the game, a massive play in the game. So, yeah, I think some of those were definitely keys to it. You had one quarterback play his way into the MVP conversation in Justin Herbert, and you had another quarterback that had opportunities specifically to create explosive plays and didn't connect with them. And I think those things stand out to me the most. When I look at the way in gotta have it moments, I think that's when teams really set themselves apart. In gotta have it moments, your quarterback goes out and can find ways to get you down the field and win games for you. That's what takes your team usually to another level, and it puts quarterbacks in different conversations. The throw Justin Herbert made to Keenan Allen in the end zone is one of the best throws we'll see this season. Like, literally, one of the best throws we'll see this season.
I agree.
Bo had 3 deep balls with wide open receivers. I complete one of them? Like, this is probably a different conversation.
Yeah, certainly if you complete the first one, it changes the complexity of that game and you're able to kind of move ahead and take a lead. The second one would have allowed you to extend a lead by more than a touchdown. And the third one, the final one to Cortland Sutton along the left side, effectively could have iced the game for you.
Yep.
And you wouldn't have had to have worried about getting into any more difficult field position and kick a field goal yourself to walk it off and win it on the road. In a game that had significant AFC West implications, where you now have the Chargers sitting undefeated at 3-0 at the top of the division with a 2-game lead on the rest of the division, basically in the first month of the season.
Yeah.
So, James, when we're looking at Sean Payton, right, who's now 1-6, I believe, all time against Jim Harbaugh, dating back to their previous regimes. Do you feel that there is some tweaking or potentially some things being overlooked within Sean's offense? And I point to that basically by looking at maybe the lack of spreading the ball around, despite all of these formational changes and substitutions and things of that nature that we see Sean platoon in and out. When you're looking at the distribution of touches, it's very significantly top heavy. Cortland Sutton has 6 receptions on 8 targets. And then the next leading receiver is RJ Harvey with 3 receptions. Now, Bo only completed 14 passes, I believe, on the day. So there's only so much bread to go around. But you look at the Chargers, on the other hand, where you've got 4 or 5 different receivers or tight ends and running backs with 7 receptions or 7 or more targets.
Mm-hmm.
Just wonder if there's maybe just kind of a myopic viewpoint with the way this offense has played out so far, and it's making it easier for defenses to key up on.
Yeah. You could almost use the Chargers as an example. Last year, Ladd McConkey was their entire passing offense. He was it. That was it. It was Ladd, and you knew that's where the ball was going, and he was awesome as a rookie. He played great. But what'd they do? Like, they went out and got Keenan Allen, who's a trusted, pass catcher for Justin Herbert. They were crossing their fingers in a very similar fashion to what Denver's doing, that Quentin Johnston was going to figure it out, right? In year 3, I want to say.
Looks good so far.
Right? Looks really good so far. Had issues with drops early in his career. Harbaugh stuck with him. Harbaugh thinks he's Steve Smith, which is an interesting comp. But and now you have one of the sneakier, better receiver rooms in football. When you pass that over to Denver now, and you go, we had these questions coming into the season. We look at the target share in his rookie year that Cortland Sutton had, right? It was astronomical to the rest of the pass catchers. And the guy who was in the receiving room that was second, you traded away in Devon Vele. And I'm assuming it's because you thought Troy Franklin was going to make this jump as a number 2, and Marvin Mims was going to continue to make the jump what you saw at the end of last season. And you added Evan Ingram to the equation as well to spread the ball around to these spots. Well, Evan has been kind of a non-factor so far this season. It was inactive for this game. And you're hoping the other 2 continue to develop. We're asking the same questions, I think, in terms of the passing game that we originally had. The Chargers went out and saw an issue and were like, let's get a vet. They didn't bring in a vet. I mean, I guess Evan Ingram could be the one that you could say they brought in. But yeah, I mean, again, there were plays to be made. I scratched my head a little bit about Sean's comments today that the offense around Bo needs to play better, and possibly, yeah. But are we just avoiding critiques of Bo Nix right now? I feel like that's a little bit the case.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I do think that, there's footage from the broadcast where you can, if you even are moderately good at reading lips, you can see Bo Nix sitting on the sideline saying to himself, I had so many opportunities today. Yeah. And it's obvious. We pointed out the 3 big ones, but there were probably smaller ones throughout the game that maybe wouldn't have made a massive impact like that, but something that keeps it from being 3rd and 11, which was their average down and distance on 3rd down. Yep. And maybe it's 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 5 and something more manageable that opens up more options in the playbook. Speaking of Bo Nix, James, because I agree with you, he has been kind of the focal point of the discussion. And I think there are 2 pretty firmly entrenched camps. There are those who, in the face of watching Bo Nix go toe-to-toe with divisional opponent like the Chargers and Justin Herbert, who are watching the juxtaposition between those 2 quarterbacks, and they find themselves in 2 camps. One, they never really believed in Bo in the first place, and they're using some of these early season struggles again to batten down the hatches as to why they were right. And then there's the other camp who maybe believe so much that they are doing what you're implying, and maybe what Sean is kind of doing, which is shielding the quarterback from criticism, or constructive or otherwise, and maybe putting it on the rest of the team. And shoot, that's not just Sean. J.K. Dobbins in the locker room said Bo never missed a throw. He played great. He did this. We got to be better. It's like, okay, hold on now. There were several. But with Bo, do you think that he has regressed, stayed the same, or gotten better, specifically when it just comes to his comfortability or his perceived comfortability, the way he looks in the pocket and making throws? Because to me, James, and I don't know if this is me having confirmation bias, watching his YouTube release where the entire first 2.5 minutes of the episode is him practicing running and throwing at odd body angles and trying to perfect certain things. Do you think that he has maybe focused so much on that it has impacted his overall actual comfortability, and he's just so quick to bail out and get on the move because that's what he likes to do, and maybe it's at a detriment to the offense as a whole?
Sounded like you were describing Drew Lock a little bit there, didn't it?
A little bit.
Crazy arm talent. Watch me go sling it. There's this thing when you talk to people around the league about quarterbacks, and I think what's happening is you have these freaks of nature that just don't come around very often, that kind of change a lot of people's perception from how the position is played. Very few humans on the planet can do what Josh Allen does, or Lamar Jackson does, or Patrick Mahomes does. I'm not putting Joe Burrow in that category because I'm talking about what they can do physically and how they can do things. And Joe's very physically gifted, of course, but I'm talking about variety of angles, throw on the run, do all these different things that you're not supposed to do. Really, they're taught you're not supposed to do. And the success of a really good quarterback, if you ask Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Drew Brees or Joe Burrow, it's the minutia of it. It's the consistently doing the same thing over and over again. It's the great feet that Sean Payton talks about that Bo Nix has. He loves his footwork. He loves his feet. I'm no quarterback whisperer, but it almost seems like Bo is seeing it really well. He's seeing where to go with the football quick. And then he's not setting his feet, and he's just, there it is, and I'm seeing it. To me, that seems correctable because I think he's seeing it faster than he did a year ago. Again, this is just my opinion. This isn't like any inside information from inside the building, but it almost seems like that's a good thing. He's seeing it faster, but he's not setting his feet and playing it the way that you should play it, with the inside the pocket, within structure, within timing. It's what Caleb Williams is going through in Chicago right now, big time. Like playing in the drop, set, go, like ball out there on time within structure. It almost seems like I'm seeing it really quickly. Boom, I got it. And there's some confidence with it, I think. But also maybe there's a little bit of the technique and fundamentals that are being lost a little bit within the process.
Two-part question here on Bo Nix, James. One, is Bo Nix experiencing, in your eyes, the often talked about but maybe lesser understood sophomore slump so far through 3 weeks of an NFL season, if that's something you even believe in, as quarterbacks to go through?
Yeah. Okay. I was pulling up while you were asking the previous question, just kind of the schedule from last year. And I'm thinking about this game, and you're going against a guy that I said is now in the MVP conversation, Justin Herbert. How many guys in that group did Bo Nix beat last year that are in that top group, Richie? Like, honestly.
None.
Like, none. And that's worth noting. It's not saying Bo played bad his rookie year. He certainly did. I think they beat a lot of quarterbacks you should beat, whether it's like a struggling Kirk Cousins or it's whoever was lining up at quarterback in Vegas. Like, same thing with the Browns and things like where you got some of these wins, Carolina, like New Orleans. Like, Bo's better than all of these guys, And so if you want to get into the group that Denver keeps talking about, is you're going to have to outslug some of these playmakers. And so I don't know if he's having the sophomore slump, because I think what's happening a little bit is there is a lot of growth. There is a lot of confidence, I think, in year two. Take that however you want in terms of that might be helping or hurting him right now. It's a long season. I think what I said on the previous answer is actually accurate. Like, I think he's seeing it pretty quick. I think he's getting it. He's picking it up. And we got to get back to maybe being a little bit more concerned of where I need to be with my feet, where I need to be with up, where I need to be. Like, those were easy throws. I hate to say it, but they're pretty easy throws. And what happened? You lost to a quarterback that made the big time throws. Like, explosive and big time throws win you games in the NFL. And Herbert did it.
And I think that's a fair point, because I think sometimes, and maybe this is more from the people in the camp who are of the mind of Sean Payton to shield Bo Nix from some of these things, would say, well, how's he supposed to complete passes down the field if this offensive line can't block, regardless of what PFF or any other nerd analytics site might tell you about what they rate and what they don't.
The nerds.
Or he doesn't have any playmakers around him, and Evan Ingram this and Adam Troutman that, and whatever, when in reality, we just in this game alone watched Justin Herbert do all of the things that people who are defending Bo in some of these instances say, well, how could he do it? Justin Herbert was under a mortar fire from Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper and Zach Allen and pressure up the middle there.
Yeah,
and
hit
yet
him 14 times. Yeah.
Steps up in the pocket and delivers plus plays. Not all of them are home run balls like the Keenan Allen play there to really kind of help put a nail in the coffin, but positive plays that keep the down and distance more manageable and keep the chains moving. And you're watching Justin Herbert do it. And I think that hurts alongside a juxtaposition for, next to Bo Nix. So
yeah, and I think you have to compete with those guys to beat them, or you play a perfect game. And they didn't play a perfect game. If you don't have the quarterback that competes with those guys and is in that tier, those top 2 tiers, I would say, because top 1's just the 4, and then including the next group down, to compete with those teams, you're either going to need your quarterback to play at that level as well, or you're going to need to play a perfect game. Because like Justin Herbert made up for all of the issues that you said you could make excuses for Bo Nix, right? Rashawn Slater's out. Then Pimpkin's good. Like they lost 3 different offensive linemen. They lose their starting running back. Tight ends have been almost obsolete for them. Like it didn't matter. It didn't matter to Justin Herbert. And so when you get to that group, that's the conversation you have. Well, it doesn't matter. He'll still find a way. Bo's not there, it seems like, yet.
James, you've spent a lot of time around a lot of teams in the NFL, and 2 that stick out in particular to me are the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield are taking on an entire new identity and kind of reinvigorating, some post-Tom Brady identity there. And the Kansas City Chiefs with Mahomes and Kelsey and Andy Reid and all that, especially during the Brady era for the Buccaneers. And with this current Mahomes and Reid pairing, 2 things that I think those teams have in common is that they know and knew how to close out games, how to keep the foot on the opponent's throat and not allow what the Broncos allowed for 2 consecutive weeks now. And I think this is just more evidence to me that as much experience as they have in Sean Payton as a head coach, and as much maybe connectivity and youthful energy and life that they have by bringing in Bo Nix and kind of reinvigorating some fire into a franchise that had been reeling, this team, to me, does not know how to close out games the way that some of those best teams that I mentioned previously do. So having covered both of those teams intimately, James, what is this Broncos team missing that's preventing them from doing that?
Well, let's start with Kansas City. And last year they started, 11-0, I think it was. And I remember talking to coaches on that staff, and it was like, we're not an 11-0 team. Like we shouldn't be winning some of these games. Part of what Kansas City did was it was a snowball effect that you got Patrick Mahomes on the other side. And I've been told this by a number of teams that would face the Chiefs. And they'll all deny it if you ask them to say it publicly, but they'll say you call the game differently offensively because 15's on the other side. And when the game gets tight towards the end of the game, they're so dominant in 1-score games and end of game scenarios. Denver knows it all too well in the blocked field goal last year, that you tighten up and they just find a way. And oftentimes teams beat themselves against the Chiefs late, as opposed to actually the Chiefs going and winning the game. It actually happens probably half the time with each. And so that was built up over a number of years, right? There's almost a mystique that helps the Chiefs in a lot of these games, but it's because Patrick makes otherworldly plays at the biggest moments. And we just saw Herbert do that. I think a perfect example real quick before I get to Tampa is what we saw from Herbert in that game and what we saw from Herbert against the Chiefs in week 1. You didn't see that the 2-3 years prior to this year. He was always coming up short. The Chargers were always coming up short. They seem to have turned their corner. I was just talking to Chase Daniel. I do a show with him who backed up Herbert when they were in San Diego, I want to say. And he was like, there's a different look in Justin's eye now. He carries himself differently. He carries himself like he's going to make the play on the biggest moment at the biggest stage. And that's the first part of it, because I'm now talking about quarterbacks that just know they will make the big play in the big moment. Brady obviously had that. Brady exuded that when I was there throughout the entire locker room. It was like, we just like the thought of losing a close game just wasn't even considered. And what happens in that is your quarterback makes a play, or let's add another team into this group that you're mentioning. in Philadelphia. Like somebody, big time
Good.
players make big time plays in the biggest moments. Nothing against Nick Bonito. I think he did everything he could to go after a freak of a quarterback. But if he sacks and takes down Justin Herbert while he's rolling out there before he makes the play, that's one of your big time players making a big time moment over their best player. And I think that's part of, building your roster and knowing that you have certain closers on your team. That's building a locker room that has a culture of we will win all of these close games. Denver hasn't established that yet. What are they? 1-7, 1-6, or whatever?
Yes,
They're over
I think
their
it's
last
1-7 now.
1-7 now, I think, over their one-score games. You need to flip that. Like Kansas City was lucky enough that just happened with Patrick and it snowballed. And then everybody believes that they will find a way and somebody will step up. I think it's a little trait that isn't talked about enough, is just knowing how to win. Jalen Hurts knows how to win games. Like he can play terrible and he knows how to win games. I think finding a way in those situations is important because there's teams that are super talented in this league that still don't know it. Like Detroit still can't get over it yet, right? And there's tons of talent there. And so look at Houston right now. Like that's another team that I'd put maybe in the same category a little bit as Denver. Maybe Denver's a little bit better, but there's a lot of talent there. And they just can't figure out a way to close out some of these games. Baker has it, man. They just won 3 games at 59 seconds, 6 seconds, and 0 seconds. Those are their 3 wins. Their point differential is +6 for the season.
Wow.
And they're 3-0. So it's really, really fascinating. But I think Baker has a little bit of that in him. I think we're trying to see if Bo does. And he might.
Losses, James, especially in a town like we have here in Denver that is championship pedigree and is used to the highest levels of success as one of the more marquee, NFL franchises calls it home. Mm-hmm. So losses really tend to bring out some emotional volatility in the fan base. And while I
saw some from some colleagues, man. I saw some social media from some colleagues over at the Fan, man. Woo!
Oh, listen, I had to jump on Twitter and respond to Mike Evans, who's like, I guess we wonder why San Francisco was so ready to let go of Talanoa Hufanga after the penalty. And I'm like, whoa.
Well, kind of wrong.
Put it down.
But okay.
Put it down. But yeah, so the emotional volatility, James, that comes out after these losses, especially the painstaking nature of the last 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a huge believer most of the time in moral victories or trying to find silver linings and things like that. But I will say this. I genuinely do believe, despite the showing over the first 3 weeks of this NFL season, which even in their win, especially offensively, was not good enough. I believe in the capability of Bo Nix to continue to progress and develop into a franchise caliber and postseason caliber quarterback. And maybe that means Super Bowl someday. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But I believe in that he is a guy that can develop into somebody in this league that can give you that chance. And I think Sean Payton, who is somebody that I wanted to be here with the Broncos prior to the hiring cycle when they brought him in, is a coach that can help make that happen and take this team back to that level. But there are plenty, James, who are already in the same vein as the sophomore slump conversation, who are ready to say, Bo Nix doesn't have it. He's not that guy. Last season was an aberration against the NFC South and a bunch of loser teams, and it was a mirage that we are now seeing kind of come to life in 2025. So to those people, James, who are ready to throw in the towel on Bo Nix and even Sean Payton as a whole, because they're kind of intertwined at this point, what would you say to that faction of people?
Yeah, well, Sean's won too many games in this league to just start questioning him. I think you can always question, and everybody does, and critiques head coaches certain play calls. Hell, Sean even came out and even criticized himself for some play calling, right, that he's had thus far this season. But I mean, he's won too many games, and I know the vast majority of it, people say, well, that's with Drew Brees, and then there was a rotating group of quarterbacks that came in afterwards, and he still found ways to win. Hell, he got Russ playing the best we've seen him play in the last 4 years, probably. So, I mean, I don't regard that at all. There's enough people I talk to around the league that respect Sean as a play caller and respect him as, does he have quirks like everybody else is coaching teams in this league? For sure. With Bo, it's way too quick. Like it's just way too quick. Look at what Michael Penix just went out and did yesterday.
Yeah.
Like it's a burn the tape game for somebody that Atlanta thinks is going to be a superstar. And that was abysmal. And Caleb Williams, like half of Chicago wants to murder him, and then after yesterday, it's like he's the greatest thing. Like, all right, now we're back, and
he threw a flea flicker.
He threw a flea flicker, and it was weird because I think their flea flicker happened like right before Denver's did.
It was the same time.
It was like it was almost at the exact same time. So I'm watching them all on the TVs at the same time. I'm like, hey, it's flea flicker. Hey, another flea flicker. Which it was the slowest developing flea flicker of all time. But
yes,
we're way too quick to judge. This is the hardest position in all of sports. The nuances and the work it takes to figure it out and play it at a high level is beyond difficult. I think Bo is seeing it. I do. I think a lot of it he's seeing it. I think he's processing quicker. I think he's going through progressions quicker. I still think he's an accurate quarterback. I still think he's above average athlete at the quarterback position for sure. But it's just way too fast, like way too fast. And we could go back to what we said about last season, and it's like, yeah, you can. It's a little bit easier, and he probably played pretty free last year in a lot of those games, right, Rich? When you're like,
yeah,
all right, look at my defense. If I don't turn the ball over, look at the opposing quarterback. I'm probably getting another shot at this. Let's make sure we play here. And that's why I always tell everybody, like, this growth within these quarterbacks is not linear. Look at Drake May right now. Like, it's so. And I'm mentioning all guys that were picked before Bo in the draft, and so like. It's not linear. There's going to be moments where he's not seeing it. And there's moments where they put, a lot on his plate and he starts seeing it faster. And then, maybe a fundamental is forgotten or a technique aspect of it, isn't right. To put it all together is tough. I mean, you're watching Patrick Mahomes struggle playing the position a little bit right now with what's around him and what's happening. And so it's just, I tell everybody just to pause, reevaluate him after this stretch. You got the Jake Browning Bengals. Coming to town, like you're going to play them. Then you got a short week to Philly, which is tough. But then Jets, Giants, Dallas, Houston. I mean, Vegas. Before you got Kansas City. Like, let's evaluate before that Kansas City game about where Bo's at.
Yep, which will be right around Christmas time at that point, right? So
it's like week 11, like November 16th. Is that?
Oh, that first Chiefs game, the second Chiefs game.
Yeah, I'm seriously just give him another 6 weeks when you got Cincinnati. Philly's tough, obviously. Jets, Giants, Dallas's defense is atrocious. Houston, Vegas. See where he's at week 11.
All right, let's get to a handful of comments here. I can see them building up on the side there. We always.
I want to see.
I know. I always like to do this. A unique opportunity for people to engage with you and kind of get some live reaction from our listeners and our viewers here on the show. So let's see from Terry. It's simple. Bo needs to stop and set his feet after his initial climb in the pocket. When he does, he's very accurate. You can see it on the TD pass to Sutton. And James, that kind of sparked something for me as you were talking. When you talk about, you said the throw that Justin Herbert made may be one of the best throws that we see all season. And there are only X amount of people on planet Earth who can do something like that, or like what Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson does. But do you think that the emergence of more of these young guys, particularly the four that rest in that upper tier one echelon of NFL quarterbacks, and the fact that two quarterbacks who fit that mold in Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert can and love to do those things and manipulate their bodies on throwing angles and things, do you think that potentially it puts implicit or explicit pressure on Bo to feel like you have to match that skill set and go toe to toe in the same way?
I think it's a good question, because I do think obviously we all compare ourselves to what's around us, and I would assume most professional athletes are the same. I think that's why whenever I had conversations with Brady back in the day, you respected his love of the mundane. Like, you have to love doing the same thing over and over in the same motion. He didn't do any of these things. Peyton didn't do any of these things that we're seeing. And hell, I know, you mentioned I've spent so much time with Kansas City and knowing so much was going on in that organization. Even when he was at the height of when Tyreek Hill was there and he's throwing the ball all over the yard, Patrick constantly was always going back to, like, yeah, we're making these plays, but I need to eventually start playing with better footwork. I need to play with better technique. This is a constant focus of mine. It's always a constant focus of his to continue to work on his feet. And I think that'll be the same with Bo Nix. But what happens in this league a lot, and I mentioned Drew as one of them too, is like Drew had unbelievable, still does, like arm talent, like really, really good arm talent. And when you have that, oftentimes you go, well, I can get away with this. Watch this. I mean, it's kind of cooler, right? It's kind of cool to throw the behind the back pass as opposed to just doing the most simplest. When I climb the pocket, then I set my feet again and I go again. And it's really tough for some guys to go, that's the way it should be done, especially when you start growing some confidence. And I'm just talking about quarterbacks in general, not just Bo, but like you could probably put him in that group where it's, you got to go back to the little things. And he has great feet. So I think he can go back and figure out some of those things. But I do think sometimes you got to make sure that it's always discussed and bad habits don't creep in. And that's something Pat was always about. It's something that Brady obviously was always about. A lot of these guys are. Justin Herbert made that throw because he had to, right? He wasn't in a clean pocket stepping up and was like, watch this, and zipped it. Like that's the only way he could have thrown that ball. I think that's what
if there was a more stable way to plant and position his body, he would have done it. Right.
Exactly.
It's the path of least resistance kind of philosophy.
Justin throws on platform a lot, right? Like feet underneath him. I mean, he's got a howitzer, but like he likes to throw on platform a lot.
Well, whatever he's doing, it helped him bring in Madison Beer to cheer him on the sideline. So Justin, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. I don't need to give you any advice. My friend. All right, here's another one that definitely touches a sensitive pain point for a lot of people, James. Another 3 weeks on Greenlaw. Man, I didn't have high hopes for this season, but now they are more aligned with the sophomore slump. Denver Broncos for life, but I'm also a realist. This Dre Greenlaw situation, and again, you talk about emotional volatility. I'm seeing on social media, people are saying, it's the Spider-Man meme between Dre Greenlaw and Randy Gregory with their time with the Broncos and all that. And again, I think that's two completely different players very for different. One, and very different situations. But James, is there any alarm bells or potentially going off in your head related to the Dre Greenlaw situation? I know Sean, when he spoke most recently about Greenlaw's situation, was kind of like, well, in hindsight, maybe we could have done this process and started it sooner, but the information at the time said this is what it would be. Where are you at with Dre Greenlaw's pending health status?
Yeah, that's the part that makes me scratch my head a little bit, because that's actually something they've been very good at here in town. Like, they've been really good with their medical staff. They've been really good with keeping players healthy, for one, two, making sure that they evaluate them very, very well. And to me, it's like you just extended the timeline when maybe you didn't have to. It's very bizarre. I didn't really understand Sean's explanation on it. I'm not sure if you did, Richie. If you did, please tell me. No. It's almost like to me, and I don't know this, it sounds like it got re-aggravated somehow, and they're just now saying that they didn't do the timetable right. Because to botch the timetable that way just seems very bizarre to me. This was going to be a difference maker for this defense, and they thought this was going to take this defense to another level. I think they had a couple of issues, even as good as they were, that they wanted to fix, and this was some player they were really aggressive at going after. So yeah, this is disappointing for sure, because they did think with Greenlaw in the middle, there were some different things that they could do as a defense, and we still haven't seen it yet.
Another player who I think is driving a little bit of pain point, but who's healthy and on the field, is Riley Moss, and we'll wait for some more comments. But Riley Moss, shout out to some of our guys at the Denver Post, Luca Evans and Parker Gabriel, pointing out that through the first 3 weeks of the season, Riley Moss is one of the most targeted DBs in the entire NFL. He's averaging about a 50% completion rate, and it clearly seems like, in the same way that we saw in the backstretch of 2024, when he kind of rushed back from injury against the Bengals to close out that season, that NFL offenses are not just unafraid to go at a guy like Riley Moss, but almost incorporating it significantly into their game plan, which doesn't help with Patrick Surtain on the other side.
Kind of necessary.
Yeah, kind of necessary. But James, do you see a potential for some cracking in the armor there with this Broncos secondary with Riley Moss? And could that potentially factor in your mind to a potential development plan for Jahdae Barron, who has inside-outside flexibility. I think the common narrative was, oh, that guy, Jaquan McMillan, welcome to the hot seat now that Barron's here. But I think there's equal opportunity for the Broncos' first-round pick from this past offseason to mix his way into the secondary in multiple ways.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to figure something out here. Like, they enjoyed the luxury that they had with Barron because of the bodies that they had in the secondary, and they liked that they could, bring them along the way that they wanted to bring them along. And maybe, again, I think that's a luxury to have that mindset. It's usually not the case, specifically with first-round corners. You're thrown into the fire right away. Oftentimes, if you're a first-round corner, you're thrown in as the number one corner a lot of times. And, man, go talk to Kareem Jackson about his first year as the number one corner in Houston. It's like one of the worst seasons for a corner ever, and they were almost ready to run him out of town. And, man, what a career K-Jack had. But, like, he has been given the ability to learn and grow, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's expedited by some sense. But I think there's a flip of this as well, and this plays into Denver. Like, this is why you try your best not to just be built with a number one receiver. Your number two receiver if you have an above average number two receiver, you're winning that battle 9 times out of 10 when the team has, a struggling number two corner. It's happening in other places that have good defenses, honestly, and they're trying to figure it out. And so, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to start putting, Barron in with the athleticism he has into a larger role soon.
Something to keep an eye on for sure. We got one from Terry here that says, guys, I never understood he didn't beat a great QB when it's up to the defense to stop those quarterbacks. It's not a great argument, in my opinion. I think there's some obvious nuance there. Quarterbacks going head to head doesn't literally mean that they are playing against each other on opposite sides of the field. But I do think, James, that the quarterbacks dictate the opposing offenses in some ways game plans, because when teams play the Kansas City Chiefs, they know there is not a chance in hell we want Patrick Mahomes to have the ball in his hands with under a minute to play if we're up one score. So while they're not playing against each other, I think that quarterbacks like Herbert and Mahomes and Burrow and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, they do have and can have a significant impact on the way the opposing offense operates despite not being on the field at the same time. Is that how you see it?
That's exactly right. And I'll take it a step further for Terry. Like, you get limited possessions. You get usually longer fields. Oftentimes when you're playing inferior quarterback play, turnovers are more prevalent. You start with better field position than maybe in a couple of drives. You start a drive or two in, positive territory. They don't protect the ball as well as some of the best ones. A lot of the great ones sustain drives and continue to have first downs. Like, what was the first down total in that game on Sunday? Like, I think the Chargers had like a gabillion first downs.
That number, I can check it for you right here, but that number does seem pretty accurate. If I'm being
gabillion,
honest.
yeah,
gabillion.
I think it was here. Like, it's
29
first downs to 9. Like, so playing a top tier quarterback like Herbert, like, you're not on the field. He's on the field, and so all of that comes into, you're right, your defense has to make stops, and that's where they put a lot of their money in, and a lot of their talent and resources and draft picks are on that defensive side. And so you're right, they do need to stop these guys. But you call a game differently, you play a game differently when you're going against those type of players. And oftentimes your offense is limited in its opportunities to succeed because of the quarterback on the other side.
Yeah, let's see. We got another one here from David. Our offense stalls out after a few drives, and getting only 15 yards in the first quarter is what I think cost us the game. Well, it's tough for me, James, to say that, like, something that happens in the first quarter is ultimately the deciding factor in why you won or lost the game. But I do think that there is, a compounding effect to it. Starting off as slowly as they have, which Sean Payton has just hammered against for a number of seasons now, and it hasn't really seemed to get any better for that offense. I think those are things that kind of snowball. We talked about if Bo Nix makes one of the 3 overthrows, they probably win the game. Doesn't mean it had to be the first one or the second one or even the last one, but if it's just one of them, I do think that there has been some talk about the slow starts on offense being kind of head scratching because, James, those are typically scripted. possessions. That is when you decide exactly what you want to draw up. You're going to run your first 15 or 16 or whatever it is, depending on the game script. And you are, in theory, in the most control that you have or could have to put yourself in a position to succeed. And yet the Broncos have been really bad on those drives to start their games under Sean Payton.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little bit of a head scratcher. I mean, it's the only time outside of, it's the only time you're seeing Caleb Williams play well this year was the first drive. They were on fire with Ben Johnson's scripted first 15. I would say you oftentimes get thrown off your first 15. That it does happen. Negative plays are a big part of that. Like you have your script, but the minute negative plays happen, like your script kind of, you go off, you deviate.
Right.
And so I think
your first 15 doesn't account for second and 17.
Exactly. Exactly. Then you're like, okay, let's go now over here. And you kind of deviate from what you had. And I think that happened to them a little bit. Negative plays were not great. I think negative plays kill you. I think that's something Bo avoided in year one. Like they didn't have a whole lot of negative plays. And so, yeah, I would like to, but then some teams are big on feeling you out in the first quarter. And going, okay, now this is how they're going to play us. Okay. I think Sean's a little bit more in that group.
All right. I think we got one more here. Sophomore slump game tape. Again, this goes back to the conversation around Bo Nix. And I might challenge that just slightly because I do think I agree with your assessment, James, that I think that Bo Nix's errors are actually not what you would think they would be from a sophomore slump, which is from the neck up. It's actually, I think, more from the neck down.
Which is much easier to fix.
Right. I do think that Bo Nix has not regressed significantly from an ability to read coverages and to dissect the defense from the line of scrimmage or to make plays when the bullets, for lack of a better term, are live. But it does feel like the execution of those plays, and whether that's because of poor execution from the skill position standpoints and having to audible or line breakdowns or things like that, he is having trouble adapting to making his body keep up with what his brain is seeing. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's what we've seen a little bit. And I'm happy because he's seen it quick. Like all of those deep shots, all of, a lot of the way we've seen him play, he's seeing it pretty quickly. And I think that's really encouraging for sure. I think there's another part of this that we didn't bring up in here. And I think it's not just Bo, it's not sophomore slump. It's something entirely different. Like I picture this kind of being similar to a lot of those years in New England where they were figuring out what they were as an offense in the first month of the season. And they didn't win a lot of games. They were like almost like in a lot of those Super Bowl years with Brady and Belichick, they were like a 500 team through September. But it was also like, what are we as an offense? Like, what are we going to be? And you have a completely revamped running back room here in Denver. And you have a tight end that you want to rely on and change. And you haven't had that type of player in terms of a pass catcher at that spot for a number of years. Like, I could see this first month being a little bit of like, what are we as an offense? And Sean figuring that out with Bo and figuring that out as a team. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, are we going to say that we're in a sophomore slump 3 games into the season?
Right.
Like, I don't think that's fair to Bo, and I don't think that's fair to the way things have gone, considering you lost the 2 games by a combined 3 points or something like that.
You didn't trail in the fourth quarter like in either one. You were either tied or ahead, and you lost with no time on the clock. And I think the sophomore slump, I think, is more of a narrative sometimes than it is, looking at it in reality or dissecting what's actually going on. Because if the Broncos didn't have the 4th worst penalty yardage in the NFL with 24 penalties for 218 yards, they might be 3-0 right now. And that doesn't change anything about how Bo Nix has played. Those issues would still be there, but they'd be undefeated in this hypothetical scenario, which kind of makes it an interesting juxtaposition about, sophomore slump versus, what's actually kind of causing the problems on offense.
And I think the other part is you're trying to find, like, I think Sean's not like, he's not lying to us that he thinks the world of Bo Nix. Like, I really don't think he is. I think he sees these traits that he can do a lot with. He's still figuring out what Bo can do and how far can I take this and what can I put on his plate and how complex. I mean, think about a Sean Payton playbook and everything that's involved and how much they haven't even touched yet. They're still trying to figure out their identity, like I mentioned, and what Bo can do within this offense to establish that identity. That's a couple things to figure out. I mean, certainly is. And I think it's probably much more fun to figure it out being 3-0, but it doesn't change probably some of the panic in the building going, I'm still not seeing it the way I want to see it as an offensive unit.
Well, they are certainly going to, if they're going to get back to 500 and kind of keep this ship from reeling too far over to one side or the other, it's going to have to come starting with a primetime matchup against a Bengals team that certainly looks a lot different than we thought it would just a handful of weeks ago. And
five guys fumbled on that team yesterday.
That's unbelievable. It's
five
unbelievable.
Five different players fumbled.
And you want to talk about an ultimate team win. You have a game where you scored 48 points for the Minnesota Vikings, and your backup quarterback doesn't have to throw for 200 yards.
No,
it was 173 yards.
You pulled your backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Like Carson Wentz didn't even need to finish the game. Like it was, I mean, they gift wrapped a lot of things. And this is a game though, like talk about number 2 receivers. Like how much fun would it be to watch Jamar and Pat for sure. But if I'm Jake Browning, I'm looking at T. Higgins all day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's going to be fascinating, and it's going to be one of those things where just like we kind of the Broncos had the biggest spread in the NFL week 1 against the Titans with Cam Ward. It was a narrative that was the Broncos there's no way they should lose this game. It's easy money. It's this and it's that. Well, albeit with slightly different parameters, this Monday night game against the Bengals has a similar feel. And if there's one thing that I've taken away from this Broncos start to the season, it's that there are no gimmies for this team. And there can't be anything taken for granted because this offense, the defense has shown that it can compete at a level at times that is still in that upper echelon and elite level, whether they're number 1 or not. The offense has yet to do that. So we will see how it shakes out over the course of the week and what twists and changes may come up to that point. James, thank you so much for joining us.
That's what Broncos Maniac says. I missed it. Who are these nerds? You said my name, James.
Yeah, that is James Palmer, NFL insider to the stars, host of like a million different podcasts and one of our favorite guests on this one. And James, we will catch you next time on Monday. Actually, we will be talking on the day of the game. We'll get a little pregame breakdown from you on a little primetime matchup there for the Broncos. James, thank you so much for joining us.
Yep. Take it easy, buddy.
Appreciate it. To the rest of you out there, have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we will catch you tomorrow at noon for the next rundown. I do what I love what I do. Second nature to put in